I'm sending you to Pharaoh. It's not I'm sending you to start a church prayer meeting. I'm sending you to evangelize. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to confront the problem in the arena of government, in the arena of political power. That's how this is to be connected. Let's look at the scripture. Before I do it, again, there's a lot of people who read these 5 signs and they don't understand the biblical historical context for the phraseology that Jesus uses. And therefore, it's just like sometimes people don't understand the book of Revelation. You can't understand it apart from Old Testament imagery and prophetic symbolic language. And many other things sometimes that Jesus did, or the apostles, they use phrases and concepts and theological ideas connected in the Old Testament for things to communicate ideas that if you didn't have the context, you wouldn't understand. Well, all of these signs have historical context, but if you don't understand that, you just read them on the surface, as many Christians do, and they just think, okay, Jesus says, hey, if a snake bites me, I'll be okay. Okay, that's a nice promise. That's good. And indeed, one time Paul did get bit by a snake and shook it off. And yeah, it can happen that way. Or they say, if I drink something that's poison, God can protect me from that. Okay, that's fine. That's true. These things can be personal. In fact, there's a lot of Christians, you may not realize this, there are churches in my country that take this sign of taking up serpents literally, that they believe Jesus wanted us to pick up poisonous serpents. I'm originally from Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, and that's where KFC comes from, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay, that's my home. Well, back in the hills of Kentucky, there are churches who take this literally, what Jesus said here, and when they gather for worship, and they build up their faith, and they're in worship and in the presence of God, they then bring in a box of poisonous snakes right into the worship. And they challenge those then to do what Jesus said. Now take up the serpent. And some do. And honestly, some die, some live. That's what happens. I don't believe that's what Jesus was talking about here at all. Let's test our faith in some way of doing these things. But those, we call them the snake handler churches. They're a reality. Did you ever hear about those kinds of churches before? Okay, that's some of our crazy American church life. But that's because they just read the text on the surface, not understanding context for defining things that Jesus meant, or any of the writers in the New Testament. That's why, good theological study is important. And so here, the phrase Jesus used as a sign of we're transforming nations, again, I'm connected to nations, that we will help the nations to take up its serpents. How will we do that? Well, the whole story, again, was connected to what I already mentioned, the story of Moses going to Egypt. Okay. The story, God revealed himself to Moses in the burning bush. Moses